Hello, welcome to this evening's webinar, AAII Investor Conference 360 Preview, led by Charles Rotblut and John Bykowski. I just wanted to remind all of our webinar viewers that AAII is a nonprofit educational group and is not a financial advisor, and thus is not able to give personal advice. Every investor is different. That's why our goal with each broadcast and article is to educate you to better make your own decisions. A handout of the presentation is available under the Handouts panel of your GoToWebinar control panel located on the right-hand side of the screen. If you have questions for our speaker, please submit them using the Questions panel of your GoToWebinar control panel. Our moderator will select questions submitted and read them aloud for the benefit of all watching the broadcast. Questions that are not selected for the broadcast will be reviewed and addressed afterwards. If you experience any issues with the audio or video of the webinar, please consult the instructions on how to change your device settings or consult the GoToWebinar support at www.gotowebinar.com. Reminder that this presentation is recorded and the replay of the presentation will be available tomorrow on AAII's YouTube channel, along with the links to this evening's handout and to some of the resources discussed. These links will be sent to your email address. Links to some of the resources discussed will be sent to your email address tomorrow. AAII's mission statement. The American Association of Individual Investors is an independent nonprofit corporation formed in 1978 for the purpose of assisting individuals in becoming effective managers in their own asset through programs of education, information, and research. Now, please sit back, relax, and enjoy this live presentation. Take it away, Charles and John.
Thank you very much, Kyler. Hi, my name is John Bykowski. I'm president of the American Association of Individual Investors, and I'll be acting as our moderator tonight. And my goal here is to introduce you, our audience, as far as what's going on this year with our investor conference. And really doing that tonight will be Charles Rotblut. Charles, welcome.
Hi, John. Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's the first day of fall. I know it's certainly crisp in the air here in Chicago, and chances are, unless you're trying to play spoiler with the Baltimore Orioles, I'm guessing this coming week you'll be focusing in more on our investor conference as opposed to watching some baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. Between the Orioles and our local Cubs, I think it's time to focus on work and not baseball.
Very good. Well, this year we actually made quite a change. I know it's been 2 years since we've had an investor conference, and this year the conference has gone virtual. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So we are, as John said, we're going virtual. We actually made the decision back in January. And obviously back in January, there's no way we could have predicted the Delta variant, but we knew there was going to be a lot of uncertainty regarding travel. And we didn't know, obviously, how that would all play out throughout the year. But it gave us the opportunity to take a step back and ask ourselves, well, if there's concerns about holding an in-person event, particularly in Las Vegas, where we're looking at it, what would be the best way to give investors the experience of going to the conference, but in this new world that we're living in? And we thought about it. We thought a virtual conference would be great because it gave people the flexibility to watch the conference in the safety of their own home or some other location they want to watch it at. But still provide the opportunity to actually provide some great speakers and great content to our audience. And it actually worked in our favor because I think when it talks about, and we think about the speakers we got, it allowed us to actually get some speakers who may not have been available because of their travel schedules, because of their calendars. It actually gives us the ability to bring in some new speakers we haven't had before, bring back some great speakers people have enjoyed, while still providing the experience of a conference in a virtual format, though with the ability to interact with us, the AI staff, and also with other members and the speakers themselves.
So those are some great advantages. Anything else in terms of accessing it? Any points you want to bring up as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. So attendees will be getting an email early next week with a link to access the website. So we're actually running it through Cvent, which is one of the largest online providers of conference platforms. So they have a lot of expertise. They have a very simple interface, and you'll be getting a link. They do recommend using a Chrome browser on a Macintosh or a PC, but you can access it from any device you want. And keep in mind, you don't necessarily have to watch it on your PC. I told John this earlier this week. For the high holy day services, my wife and I decided to watch them from our house versus going to our synagogue. I took my laptop, plugged it into my TV, and watched the whole service on a big screen TV. So really, if you have a device that can display a web browser or can connect to a device with a web browser, you literally can watch it from the place of your choosing, whether it's your home office, if it's your living room, or perhaps you want to enjoy the conference from your boat out on the lake. And if so, I will say that I'll be jealous of your viewing experience. But it really is set up so you can watch it from the device of your choice and from the location of your choice as well.
Well, one of the nice things about having a conference, and one of the reasons we have these conferences, is for people to kind of get together and interact. Has that been taken into account as far as the virtual conference is concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to have the opportunities for members to actually interact with speakers, but we will also have a chat function on the CVent platform that will allow members throughout the conference to interact with each other. It'll give you a chance. You can actually, and some members, if they're wanting to, they can actually direct message other members. That's an opt-in thing. So I don't want anybody who's concerned about privacy issues to get nervous. You're not required to, but there will be various points throughout the platform where you can actually interact with other members, because we wanted to try as much as possible to replicate what we call those hallway conversations. Maybe you're sitting, a physical conference, you're sitting in a seat and you're talking to the person next to you, or maybe you're in the hallway and you get a chance to interact with other members. We're doing our best to replicate that in a virtual scenario, so you can actually, get on chat and actually have conversations with other people, be it about the conference, being about the sessions. Maybe you want to bounce ideas off about your own investing strategies, or maybe you happen to actually be in a city with a good baseball team. We do have the White Sox here, but maybe you're a Dodgers fan and you run across a Giants fan and you guys want to talk to each other. You will have that opportunity on the platform to do that. So we definitely want to keep that sense of a community, because AAII is really about our members, not just about educating you, but we really want to foster that sense of being part of something larger and having the ability to share ideas with each other.
So looking at the banner of the slides, the conference is being held on Thursday and Friday of next week, September 30th and October 1st, but then also we have a kind of a pre-conference day on next Wednesday for boot camps. I think I have that correct, right?
Absolutely. We're going to do our boot camps on Wednesday, and then we'll do the conference on Thursday and Friday.
And then I guess you're going to discuss later on some specifics about the platform, as far as how people can access it and the various benefits of the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We want everyone to feel comfortable, but we'll definitely discuss some of the highlights of the platform.
And then, one of the things I think you touched upon earlier was the whole notion that, one of the advantages of a virtual conference is that the ability to have more speakers, but also one of the frustrations I've always had when attending a real conference is that, often you have concurrent speakers going on and you don't know which one to pick, or the room gets, actually, we've had situations where actually we have the room overflowing, and I know, our members want to come in and see Christine Benz, but there's no seats available. But tell me a little bit about the programming, and you want to talk about the keynotes perhaps first?
Sure, absolutely. We'll start with the keynote. So we've got 3 great keynote speakers. We have Jack Brennan. He's the former CEO of Vanguard. And he just came up with a great book called More Straight Talk on Investing. And so you can see on the slide where he's talking about getting to Boca. And you'll see the interview in the October Journal. We'll have that up next week, where he talks in more detail. And it's not so much about getting to Boca Raton, although some of you might have the retirement dream of retiring in South Florida. Maybe some of you are actually in South Florida. But the idea is to have this goal in mind, this big goal of what you want to do with your life. And maybe it's, again, retiring in South Florida. Maybe it's leaving a large inheritance to your heirs. Maybe you want to give to your favorite charitable organization or congregation. Whatever that goal is, he really wants to, he's going to talk about, well, how do you make that goal happen? And one of the great things I had with my conversation with Jack is he's really good about putting things in simple terms, taking some of these really complex concepts, talking about simple terms, but also being able to bring in stories about individual people and using them as examples about how you can actually take these investing concepts and make them work. It's a really good, it's going to be a great talk about portfolio strategies. And it's really going to be one of those ones where you can almost think about resetting your mind from the day-to-day news and really thinking about, oh, if I just do these simple things, I'll be more successful. So I'm really looking forward to his presentation.
It does sound interesting. And I think one of the treats we were able to do, I think as you were talking to him, we actually we spoke to many of our speakers in advance, and we got them to provide some tidbits of information, whether it's tips and whatnot. And we're going to share some today, I think, at the end of our webinar. So I think we're going to have Jack in there and some other people as well.
Absolutely.
And then so it sounds like you said we have 3 primary keynotes. So we have Jack, and who's our next one then?
I believe the next time we have Terry next. Oh, we have Paul Merriman. Oh, so I'm batting 1 for 2 right now. So yeah, Paul Merriman's actually going to speak Friday morning. Paul's a great financial educator. Always draws a big crowd when he speaks at our chapters at our conference. And Paul really is going to talk about incorporating small cap value with your portfolio. And one of Paul's strategies is, we know over the long term, small cap value has done exceptionally well, but it can be a volatile asset. So what Paul proposes is having your more traditional S&P 500 type portfolio, but then just adding small cap value. So you're tilting towards it, meaning you're adding a little bit of flavoring of small cap value to boost your returns. But Paul's a great educator. He's really good about getting people to think about long term. And he actually has an article in this month's journal about how to hit a retirement home run, where he talks about having that long term focus, being disciplined, but also doing it in a way that's fairly simple but repeatable. And so he's going to be a great speaker. And I encourage you to actually tune in early on Friday for John's opening remarks, because Paul's going to give a few, we'll call it pre-session comments as well.
That's good. And I think one thing we really need to point out, probably, and we made a mistake, obviously, in putting our slides together here, is that all the times we're showing here are in Central Time. So if you see 9 a.m. here, we're talking about 9 a.m. Central. So, and one of the considerations with the platform we're using Cvent as our platform, is that shortly after the live presentations are made, they will be available for rebroadcast online. So if you're on the West Coast and you want to sleep in a little bit and catch up on your Z's, you'll be able to log into the conference, and you'll be able to see any elements you wanted to see that perhaps were on earlier in the day. It's also true anything on next night. So basically, anything that will be online will be recorded, will be available as a replay, or you could participate in a live context, and also it'll be available for after the conference as well. So if anybody's concerned about having too many dark eyes, at least that's options available for you. And then we have one more keynote, and I think you got the name before, so I think it's Terry Savage. Is that correct?
Terry Savage. Yeah, Terry Savage. So well-known financial columnist, author of several books, and she's a great speaker, and she's going to talk about managing money after retirement. I do know she is actually waiting till close to her event to actually do her presentation slides. She's trying to make it up to date as possible. But Terry's really good about thinking about a lot of the things from a personal financial standpoint. And so we often think about portfolios, what's my allocation, what's my stock selection? But when you're in retirement, there's obviously a lot of other factors. You have to think about your living arrangements, your Social Security, your Medicare. I know she's a proponent of having long-term care insurance. And so, being a successful investor isn't just about hitting this monetary number. It's also about making sure that all your goals are lined up, because it's also on the spending side, making sure your portfolio is managed through the rest of your life. And so, like I said, Terry approaches it from the personal finance standpoint. And so it's not going to be budgeting, but it's going to be a lot of decisions that you as an investor, when you're thinking about your retirement portfolio and ensuring your money lasts throughout your lifetime and possibly beyond your lifetime, there's a lot of considerations that go into it, and Terry's going to address those. She's a fantastic speaker, and like the other two keynotes, I'm looking really forward to hearing her presentation.
I agree that these are very prominent speakers, so there's really no hidden gems there. One of the things I know that when we used to have our conference and was having panel discussions, and I look forward to panels and the whole notion of having experts come in and discuss their viewpoints on a specific topic. And we're kind of shaking things up this year a little bit. We have two panels coming up, and what tell us a little bit about the first panel, the factor investing panel?
Yeah, so just to give some people some background, when we thought about the panels, we thought about, well, what topics are people really interested in when we look at the AI memberships? And obviously, we're a broad organization, a lot of different interests, but we know a lot of people are really interested in stock selection, or if they're looking at ETFs, think about, okay, how do I pick the best ETFs? And so for this first panel, we went with factors, and factors are basically traits of stocks shown to lead to higher returns over the long term. So if you assume the market's efficient, that the best way to invest is indexing, you still have things like value, like small size, like momentum, that still say that if you really tilt those, overweight those different factors, those different characteristics, you get higher returns. And the people you see on our slide, Chris Peterson, Larry Swedroe, and Jack Vogel, they're all experts in this field, and they're really good about talking about how to use it, explaining, well, why does value work? Why does momentum work? And also, but understanding how to actually put in a portfolio context. So even though there's going to be a lot here for stock selection and what you should look for in stocks, there's also going to be a lot here for fund investors about what types of funds you should use. And I'll point out, Chris Peterson has a very simple 2-fund portfolio. He just wrote a book. You'll see his interview in the October journal talking about using factors, using funds to get factor exposure. Jack Vogel works for Alpha Architect, which does ETFs. And Larry Swedroe is also a big user of ETFs as well. So people who are either interested in mutual funds, ETFs, or stock selection are going to get a lot out of this panel, really learning about how can I actually get higher returns over the long term by using these factors, and also how can you use these factors within the context of an overall portfolio.
So you think I'll find out if value is dead if I attend this particular panel?
I think so.
Very good, excellent. And I guess on beyond the more sophisticated stock analysis type thing and factor investing, the other one we kind of chose to focus on is that retirement investing, a topic that seems to be always popular with our members.
Yeah, absolutely. And this will feature Christine Benz of Morningstar, Paul Merriman, who I recently introduced and talked about, and also Roger Young of T. Rowe Price. And so this is going to actually cover all aspects of retirement. I actually just sent the panel some ideas for topics and questions a couple hours ago, so it's very fresh in my mind. We're going to talk about investing for retirement. So say if you're younger, you're trying to build the retirement nest egg, what considerations do you have? But also the key point of transitioning to retirement. So maybe in your late 50s, early 60s, or maybe you're part of the FIRE movement and you're thinking about leaving your full-time job. What considerations do you have? And then finally, once in your retirement, managing your portfolio once in your retirement. So really broad range of retirement topics. I do know Christine will have some new research to introduce. Roger Young has an article in this month's journal talking about Roth IRA conversions. We're going to try and touch on that. I know that's always a common topic, and Paul will be given the opportunity to talk about some mistakes that people make and how to avoid them. So I think this will be a really good panel, regardless of what stage of life you're in and where you're at in terms of this retirement investing spectrum, whether, again, you're saving for retirement, you're just starting right now, or you are fully retired and you're looking at how to continue to manage your portfolio.
It sounds like a really interesting panel, but I guess those are just two of our panels and 3 of our keynotes. When it came to booking and looking what kind of speakers to have and what kind of topics, how did you go ahead about and do that?
Yeah, one way to describe it, John, is that we went with a top-down approach. So we really thought, first of all, what key topics are our members interested in? What key topics do they want to learn more about? And then we looked for experts along each of those fields. And so, and looking at experts, we both looked at past conferences, who's been popular among our members, who's been engaging speakers, but we also thought about, well, what experts out there can we reach out to that we haven't had before that will actually bring a different line of thinking and expose our members to new ideas. So you actually see a mix of that. For instance, this year, Jack Brennan's going to be new to it's going to be new to our conference. Kelly Erb, who goes on Twitter by the name Tax Girl, she and we'll actually have Ed Slott, who's well known among financial planners. They'll be joining us as new speakers. But we'll also have speakers. We already showed you Paul Merriman, Christine Benz. Both have always have really packed rooms when we've done our live conferences. We also have AI speakers themselves speaking. I'll be speaking. My colleague Wayne Thorpe, Derek Hageman will be talking about dividends. But we also have some new topics. We're actually going to have a session on cryptocurrency for those of you who want to learn more about Bitcoin, Ether, some of Dogecoin. Want to learn more about the emerging asset class. We'll have a session about that. Overall, as you can see on the slide, we're going to have over 20 breakout sessions. We'll have the 3 keynotes. We'll have 2 panels and a plenary session. So there's going to be a lot of sessions for people to choose from. And as John said, the great thing is all these sessions are going to be recorded. So if you see 2 sessions occurring at the same time and you're thinking, well, I don't know which one I want to choose, they both sound interesting, you can choose one guilt-free because the other one will be recorded and you'll be able to watch it almost immediately afterwards or later at night or next week or next month. They're going to be available for you to watch on your own schedule.
So I could see, and looking at the questions that are coming up here, that was one of the questions. So thank you for answering that. And for Dilbert, I know Dilbert says he's not part of the FIRE movement and has to work, so he won't be able to watch it live, but he'll be able to watch everything at his leisure then afterwards.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sessions should be up approximately about 1 hour after they end, is what CVent told us. So absolutely, you can watch it in the evening or on the weekend when you have more time to devote and more time to really focus on those sessions.
Correct. Wait for a rainy day and go ahead and just get some education down. And I think we'll have some good presentations because the speakers are just tremendous as far as that is being concerned. And you said we have a special session going on. A little bit about that. Can you tell us about?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to have Harry Kramer join us, and he's going to give us a really interesting talk, really about putting your values in terms of, think about your values in terms of how you live your life. He has a book out, I want to say it's called 168, and refers to a number of hours in a week. And what his talk's going to be about, if you have certain things in your life that are important, and maybe certain goals here that are really important, are you not only devoting your portfolio towards reaching those goals, but are you also devoting your energy, your time? So the idea is, in terms of values, if you have certain things that are really important to you, what are you doing to actually make those things happen? What are you doing to further those causes? And and those values could be whatever's really personal to you. It's really what's important to you, but it's really thinking about from a holistic perspective, how do you actually orient your life so you achieve the things that really matter to you? He's going to be a very engaging speaker. He's described this presentation to us as being really interactive. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a wonderful presentation.
I agree. And one of the questions that have come up here is that if people want to take a look at the schedule now as it exists, I do believe if you go to our sign up page, there is a tab that people can actually look at the schedule all the way through for every day and get descriptions and all of our speakers. So the best thing to do would be to go to our website and either look at the banner ad which is displaying, or go to events and go to the investor conference link. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you'll be able to see a list of all the programs and, as you said, the times as well. And all the times are central. And if you forget that, we do have it marked on the page.
Very good. And one of the things I think that I thought was we were looking at the schedule this last week, and we're saying, how can we organize this information? Because for example, my daughter, who's recently entered the workforce, might be looking for more beginner investing information, whereas perhaps I want to get a refresher on stock selection techniques. So you've taken a little bit of time and effort and put together some basic tracks. Should we go through some of these?
Yeah, absolutely. And so what we did, like John said, we call them tracks. They're basically categories. So we looked at different sessions and thought about, okay, what if we're going to categorize them, what category would they fall into? So again, as you just said, if somebody has certain interest, they'll actually be able to say, okay, I can watch this session and this session and this session. And again, if there's other interests you have, you still can watch those other sessions later in the day or next week because they're all recorded. But we want to give people some idea so they can actually think through how they schedule what they watch. Because you've seen it, John, I've seen it. People in the hallways, they've got their agenda up and they're trying to decide where to go. So we thought it might be helpful in terms of allowing people to plan out their conference agenda, which sessions they might want to prioritize in terms of viewing first.
And retirement investing is one of them.
Absolutely. And if you want to go to the next slide, so we're going to start off with Jack Brennan. As I said earlier, he's going to talk about this whole concept of getting to Boca. And so maybe for you, Boca is retirement, and maybe you want to live in Boca. Maybe you're more of a snowbird and you want to spend your retirement years in Aspen. It's whatever that is. So he's going to talk to you about how to actually get to those goals. So it'll be a really nice, and again, a lot of talk about orienting your portfolio to get to those goals. So really engaging talk. And then we'll have Ed Slott. And I've never met Ed Slott, but I know a lot of financial advisors follow him. And he's going to really talk about taxes from the standpoint of IRAs, about how do you actually manage that tax bite. Ed goes by the moniker of being the IRA expert, but he really does know his subject. He knows IRAs in and out. He knows the tax implications of doing things with IRAs, whether it's Roth conversions, whether it's inherited IRAs, whether it's traditional IRAs. I think it's going to be a tremendous talk, and I'm really looking forward to hearing it. And again, then we're going to have the retirement panel, which I mentioned earlier, with Christine Benz, Paul Merriman, and Roger Young. And I went over that earlier. And again, we're going to talk about going from that standpoint of you're young and you're starting to invest for retirement to you're already in retirement. And I think it's going to be a good chance for some back and forth. And I'm pretty excited about this panel.
And what are you speaking about, Charles? I don't see a slide for you here. What are you going to be discussing?
Oh, I'm trying to be a little bit modest, but I will be discussing our PRISM wealth building process. And this is a 5-step process for developing a plan for really achieving your financial goals. So it really starts off with the idea of prioritizing what your goals are and goes all the way through to monitoring your portfolio, your life stages, and your progress towards goals. So it really is a simple process to think about what are your goals and then how do you orient your portfolio and how do you make sure your investment decisions are lined up with that whole reason of achieving your goals, because everyone is investing for a reason. And so while you're investing matters for you, how do you actually orient everything you do to actually achieve that goal? So it's a new project we've been working on at AAII. We're about to actually introduce something tied to it, which will be really big. I'll give a preview of that at my webinar, but many of you might already be familiar about it. We've talked about it a little bit in past webinars, and you might have been reading the articles in the AAII journal as well.
A couple questions have come up here, so maybe we could just take care of them before we step on to our next section. So will there be continuing education credits for any of these classes, any of these webinars?
Will be. If you're a CFP, we're actually working the CFP board right now to get those CEC credits. We're waiting for them to actually get back to us and tell us, okay, these specific sessions will qualify for CFP credits, and we'll mark them as such. But you will, if you're a CFP, be able to use these for your CECs.
And then Pete here was asking if someone wants to take a look at the slides, the presentation slides, or even, perhaps they want to get, they have difficulty listening. I know you enunciate clearly better than I do. but will there be closed captioning available for these things as well?
I don't believe there will be closed captioning. I can double check with our CVent platform about that. I do know we're working with our presenters to have the slides available beforehand, and those will be accessible in the platform. As far as a closed captioning, that's a great question. I will try to find out.
Thank you. So I guess now going forward in terms of other kind of tracks people can listen to, I know that retirement planning was one of them. You were thinking about stock selection. When you say stock selection, what do you mean?
Well, that's really is thinking about if you want to pick great stocks for your portfolio, what you need to think about. And obviously it's not turning on CNBC and saying what stocks being talked about today. It really is about if you're going to look at a stock, do the fundamental analysis. What traits do you actually need to consider? And what actually signifies a winning stock? What really matters? And what should you ignore? Because one of the things our founder, Jim Cloonan, talked about is having this disciplined, well-defined approach to investing. And so we want you, when you engage with stocks, we really want you to really focus in on these are the key traits and these are the key numbers I need to look at and considering whether or not it's a good stock. And so our speakers on this are going to give you some great ideas. Our first one is Bob Hagstrom. He's written several books on Warren Buffett. He has experience actually working as a value manager. And he's going to talk about Warren Buffett and how Warren Buffett goes about selecting stocks and how you can actually use it as an investment process to develop your own value-oriented strategy. I met Bob before. I've seen him speak. He's an engaging speaker, and he's also a great writer. If you haven't read some of his books, I do recommend it. And I will say, I'll put a plug in for our screens because we do have a Hagstrom Buffett screen as one of the 60 screens available to AAII members, and it's based on one of Robert's books.
And then also I see you have Wayne mentioned here.
Yes, our colleague Wayne Thorpe. Wayne will actually be talking about using screening to actually find stocks, and particularly blending strategies. So we often talk about diversification, either at the stock level where you mix up different industries, maybe different sectors, or maybe you're going with different asset classes. Wayne's going to look at diversification more from the standpoint of strategies, particularly using these guru strategies. People like David Dreaman, people like William O'Neill. So not only are you diversifying by strategy, but what if you actually use different gurus and combine them together into a single strategy? How does that work on a portfolio level? And so Wayne's going to show you how we do this with a Stock Superstars portfolio. And it's really good because you have a few gurus you really like to follow. And it'll be a good presentation to understand how you can actually blend them together and get additional diversification by investing style in your own portfolio. And then, as I said before, we'll have our factor investing panel, which is more of a quantitative approach to investing. So Guru is more active, more hands-on. The factors is really getting down to this quantitative method where you're favoring, say, low value, small size. Maybe you're favoring quality or momentum. So it's really a quantitative approach to investing. So a different style of investing, but still one that works really effective. So if our Stock Superstars portfolio is really guru based, you can look at our shadow stock portfolio with John overseas, which is more of a quantitatively driven approach. And really one of the oldest running factor portfolios.
And these are just a sampling of the types of things that are available in the stock screening area, stock selection stuff. So this is just a couple, just something to kind of whet your appetite, get a sense for the kind of tools that are available. And one topic that's of great interest to our members as well is the whole notion of income investing. Now, interest rates perhaps are starting to creep up a little bit now, but for many of our members, the whole notion of how can they optimize the income stream from their portfolio is key.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to actually attack this both from the bond side and the dividend side. You see Derek Hageman right here on our screen. He's going to talk about dividend investing. And Derek really, he's a value investor, but he really favors his dividend growth stocks. So he's going to give you some ideas about how to actually analyze a dividend stock, how to tell not only is it attractively valued, but more importantly, can it actually continue to pay that dividend? Because as investors, rule number one for your dividend investors to actually get that cash flow coming in. And so If you like dividends and a company can't support its dividend, well, it's not a very good dividend stock. So Derek's going to show you how he actually looks at dividend stocks, and some of the factors that he actually considers are characteristics he actually looks for in a dividend stock to make sure it truly is a great dividend paying stock and one that can actually grow its dividend over time. Another thing is annuities. And annuities are really popular among economists, not so much among individual investors, but they can actually play a useful role in portfolios. And Aaron Brask is a financial planner. He's written several articles for us in the AAII Journal. It's going to talk about how to think about using annuities in your portfolio really as a supplement to your other assets. So not completely annuitizing your portfolio, but think about how to actually overlay it, perhaps your stocks and your bonds in a portfolio. So it'll give you a really good idea about how they can actually play into it and when they're appropriate to actually use in a portfolio. And then finally, Brian High. So we just talked about bonds. Yes, interest rates are painfully low, but there's an old saying about bonds that they give you the courage to invest in stocks, and they do dampen the volatility of a portfolio. They do provide a stream of income on it, and Brian's really has a lot of expertise in bonds. He's one of our contributing editors to the AAII Journal, and he's going to talk about how to view bonds and how to analyze bonds in this current low rate environment.
And again, there's a lot of other areas available in terms of seminars available for income. But one thing, I guess, given what, the market seems to be in a little bit of turmoil lately, and the people are questioning, what's the market outlook, what's the economic outlook, and so we always try to have some well-known people that can speak to that. And I guess, just two examples would be what? One is Sam Stovall.
Yeah, absolutely. So Stan works for CFRA. He's been a speaker we've had at many of our conferences. And Sam's really good because he really looks at the numbers and not just, what's GDP, but really looks at the long-term trends in markets. Like, for instance, how often have we seen corrections? What types of sectors do well between the summer and fall? What does well over the winter and spring? And he always brings an entertaining viewpoint to presentations. I guarantee you'll learn something, and I'm pretty sure you'll laugh probably several times during his presentation as well. Very, very good speaker.
He's a great speaker. He's able to really, personalize it. I mean, one of the things about, as an individual investor is that you really have to have a sense of history. There's a saying, I think, history doesn't always repeat itself, but often it rhymes. And what Sam does is he's able to relate historical trends and give us some color as far as what's happening now, is it normal, and what can one expect going forward. And it's so important to have a sense of history so we don't let the market emotions get to us. So we're not too busy plotting dots and whatnot. We're just trying to make a look at our long-term allocation, making sure we're set for that correctly. And I guess another strong person we're going to have is James Paulson.
Right. So Jim's a market strategist with Loophole Group. Jim's also very personable. He's the only person I know that actually handwrites on all his reports. Thank you for reading at the end. But Jim's going to provide more. If you want more of a macro outlook, Jim's going to be that person. He's going to, he does a really good job looking at what's happening in terms of the economy, in terms of how's inflation affecting stocks. So they're both market historians, but Jim will actually give you more of macro viewpoint of how things going in the economy right now are occurring and how they're actually going, how things in the economy are actually impacting the financial markets and what you can expect versus current trends. So two different ways to look at the market, two different viewpoints on the market. But I think combined, you'll actually find a lot of good information between the two. I read both of the reports regularly. Both are really interesting. Both are really insightful. I think people who are interested in market outlooks will enjoy hearing both.
I agree. And beyond these big market outlooks, again, we're just touching on some of the various sessions we're going to have. I mean, we're going to cover just about every type of security, investment, and analytical style that an individual investor might want to take a look at. We have sessions on ETF investing. We have Ray Rondo doing a session on technical analysis. So, I mean, again, I encourage anyone who's interested in these event go to our website and take a look at the full schedule. I think you'll find a number of things of interest, and I always like just even listening to these things sometimes in the background or watching them in the background. They do other things. It's just always enlightening. Kind of, it's a good reminder. It's we sometimes get caught up in the day-to-day market news, and it's good to have this sort of good deep background education information that kind of help us remind us, help ground us, and help give us some ideas on how to invest. And part of it, I guess, is we have two other types of events that are going on or activities, I guess, ahead of the conference. Tell us a little bit about boot camps.
Yeah, so boot camps, we started doing this several conferences ago, and it really is a chance to actually take a step back and really do a deeper dive into key subjects. So these are going to be longer sessions. Each is going to last about 2.5 hours or so, 2 hours and 45 minutes or so. But there will be breaks, it's including the breaks. So don't think you're going to be sitting in your chair for 3 hours straight. We're actually putting in 2 15-minute breaks in each session so you can get up, get some water, stretch. But the whole idea is, well, let's take some key investing concepts and let's do a deep dive and really give attendees a chance to really think about and learn. And what I've seen personally over the years is a lot of people come back to these boot camps year after year because they like the fact that we step away from all the noise and we really start talking about, okay, let's think about not only theory but practice. How are you going about making key decisions for your portfolio? And let's work through this process. Let's work through some of the key considerations. And so we hear from a lot of members is that, I really like the fact that I can sit through this. I always learn something new, but also gives me a chance to just reset and really think about what I'm doing.
And tell us a little bit about the boot camp you're going to be doing for us, Charles.
Yeah, so I'm going to be covering portfolio strategies, and it really is, from my title, you can see 7 different ways. So I'm really going to get people thinking about, not so much, what's the best diversification, but really thinking about portfolio management for a practical manner. What things can I actually do that are actionable to actually be more successful with my portfolio? And so we're going to talk about a lot of different things in it, from retirement, thinking about retirement, in terms of retirement investing. We're going to talk about behavioral finance. I'm going to talk to you about things you can think about automating, asset allocation. So we're really going to go through these portfolio things, and really it's going to be 7 big strategies you can implement to really improve your results. And it's important to realize that some of the things might seem minor, but if you can do certain things and you can increase your return on your portfolio by even 0.5% per year, it's a huge difference in wealth. And I just wrote about it today for the journal. The Morningstar just came out with a report saying that investors underperform the very same portfolios, this very same mutual funds they invest in, by 1.7 percentage points per year. So you take the performance of the mutual fund ETF, and then you subtract 1.7 percentage points every year from that. That's a huge loss of wealth. And so I'm going to help you realize how to actually make up that gap and perhaps even get above the returns by just making smarter decisions with your portfolio.
Sounds interesting. And then following up, yours will be Wayne Thorpe.
Right, and so Wayne's going to do a deep dive into how to analyze a stock. So we're going to have some sessions throughout the conference about how to analyze a stock. Wayne's actually going to do a deep dive, and he's going to actually walk you through how to analyze a stock fundamentally. What key things you need to actually look at? What key factors really matter? So if you're a person who wants to get involved in individual stocks, you like investing in individual stocks, I think it's really worth going through because it's really a hands-on walkthrough from someone who's very knowledgeable about all the different things you need to look at. And so he's not just going to give you theory, he's actually going to show you actual examples of what to look at and explain to you why this matter, why is this good, why is this a warning sign. And so I think if you're someone who's going to invest in individual stocks, it's well worth attending Wayne's seminar. I really think it'll help you become a better stock picker.
That sounds really interesting. And I'm getting a lot of questions here about accessing the conference and whatnot. Why don't you give us a little bit of information about how they access the conference and how members will get information on activities and what they can do and how to get in?
So absolutely. So again, as I mentioned earlier, we teamed up with an organization known as CVent, and they are one of the largest providers of online conferences. So Many of you may not be familiar with the name, but if you've attended other events, there's a good chance it might have been on a Cvent platform. And so what's going to happen early next week, I believe Monday, either Monday or Tuesday, we're going to send out an email to all attendees that's actually going to have a unique URL for you to sign on and access the platform. So before the conference even starts, you'll be able to access the platform, be able to peek around, see what's on it, get yourself familiarized. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy, but you get a chance to get in there and start planning out your session. Navigation is really easy. And as I said before, Steven's going to actually record all the sessions. So you don't have to worry about, oh, wait, I want to see the session, but I'm not sure where to access it. You'll be able to use that login and just go back to Cvent. Maybe it's, the weekend after the conference. Maybe it's a month after the conference, and maybe you want to see Jack Brennan again. Or maybe you miss that session on cryptocurrency, and maybe you're not really ready to invest in Bitcoin, but you just want to learn a little bit more about it. You'll be able to go back to the Cvent platform and find it. As I said, the navigation is going to be pretty straightforward. You'll just be able to find the session, click on it, and either watch it live or watch it afterwards. And again, on the session, you'll have the ability of, sorry, I should say on the platform, you have the ability to pose questions to the speakers. We're going to have moderators throughout the whole conference watching those questions coming through, giving them to the speakers so the speakers are able to answer them. But you'll again have the opportunity to also interact with other speakers. So that's why we're calling it 360, because you will have the ability not only to watch, but also to engage as well. And so I think you'll find the platform very easy to use. And I think you'll find this interactive environment will work really well and hopefully be a very enjoyable and informative experience for you.
And members should look out for a special email from us next week with information on logging in. That's sort of
Absolutely.
a key question that's come up a couple of times.
Yes.
And I guess we still have, a couple of slides here, but one of the things I think you had put together for us was the opportunity to hear from some of our speakers. Now, again, I'm just as technologically challenged as Charles is, but what we have here, I guess, are a couple of speakers that might be interesting to show. I guess one of them is Jack Brennan, and why don't you set this up a little bit, Charles? So you went ahead and asked some questions of our various speakers. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So we asked our speakers 4 different questions, not real, just to try and have them share some of their wisdom with them. And so we asked them things like, what is your biggest mistake you've made that you'll admit to? We asked them for book suggestions. We asked them for tips. And so it was really a nice chance to actually get to know the speakers a little bit more and have you all get more familiar with them, but also to give you some useful information. And we actually got some great comments and some great insights and some great anecdotes from some of our speakers.
What do you feel is the most useful investing guidance you can give to individual investors?
Well, I always think there are 5 points to it. It's very quick. One is live below your means and start saving. Second is be balanced, be diversified is the third, be disciplined is the fourth, and then being cost conscious. That's how I think I would define the parameters of a successful program from when you're 21 till you're 101. Would have those 5 components to it.
What is the biggest investing mistake that you've made or will admit to?
Well, when I reflect on how our portfolio has behaved, I would say that having too much cash in our portfolio has certainly dragged on our results over time. So this is cash that might come into our taxable brokerage account through bonuses, for example, or other windfalls like that. We're just a little slow on the draw in getting that money invested. It never really feels like a terrific time to put a lot of cash to work. In hindsight, when you look at that over many years and think about how interest rates on cash investments have trended down, that's surely been a drag on our results. And to me, it's a cautionary note against sort of soft market timing. So even if you're not actively switching in and out of the stock market, factors like being slow to invest cash can, in fact, weigh on your returns.
It's great advice, isn't it, Charles?
Absolutely.
And then I think we're going to hear from Paul Merriman here.
How do you allocate your portfolio and how often do you rebalance?
Well, uh, I would not recommend the way I allocate our investment strategy for most people that I've run into. Most people should probably be just strictly buy and hold. Most people should have the right amount of fixed income to address their risk tolerance and their need for return. It's pretty simple stuff. But I'm Mr. Defense. I have looked at how many ways can I be defensive? I mean, I can be defensive with low expenses. I can be defensive with index funds. I can be defensive with doing the right tax thing. I can be defensive on how I take money out of my investments in retirement. So here is how I am defensive as an investor. Half, you're not going to believe how many halves I have that I work with. Half of our portfolio, my wife and my own, is in buy and hold. And that buy and hold portion is half in bonds, US bonds, mutual funds made up of US treasuries, half in bonds, half in stocks. The stocks are half in big, half in small. The asset classes are basically half in value, more than half, but about half, and half in growth. So we are all these halves. Why all of those halves? Because every one of them is there for a purpose. Every one of them has a right to disappoint me. Every one of them should make me happy, hopefully, at some point. But they're all built with our risk tolerance, our desire for return in mind. The other half of our portfolio uses market timing, being managed using all mechanical strategies, all automated. So the buy and hold is automated, the market timing is automated, and to defend myself against my own emotions, I have an advisor who does it all for us. It would be a disaster for my life if I managed my own money. I'd be thinking about, should I be doing something? I would emotionally have a very difficult time being a mechanical investor. But by turning it over to somebody else and spending my time teaching and writing and podcasting and doing all those things where I really can make a difference, it is hugely creates a sense of freedom and peace of mind. I get up early, but I get up well rested and ready to go to work and not focused on the stock market. I don't even look at the value of my portfolio, but maybe twice a year. So I'm just not in it. I'm probably not your typical AAII person because most of the folks in that organization, and I love it, are more involved. I don't want to be involved. Boring is beautiful for me. So that's the way that our portfolio is built.
And that was Paul Merriman, and he is a keynoter, and he does a great job of explaining how one can try to optimize their portfolio. And it could be done in a very simple way, or it could be done in a more complex way. But the goal is to really how you can make small changes that have a big long-term impact on your wealth building. And then Charles, I think we have one last video I want to show tonight. What was the question and who was the speaker? Do you recall?
So I look at my notes. It's been a long day. Brian Hawley, actually. I don't remember the
What was, I
question
think
we
the
asked.
question we asked of them was, what's his favorite book? Is that correct? A book recommendation?
Yeah, that was what we asked. We asked all the speakers to suggest a favorite book that they did not write. So a little interesting
Great.
twist on that.
Let's hear what Brian has to say.
What is your favorite book written by a different author?
Again, there's so many books, but I got to focus on Peter Lynch. Actually, I'll give you two books by Peter Lynch, Beating the Street and One Up on Wall Street. Peter Lynch ran, many of your listeners or viewers probably know, but if they don't, Peter Lynch was probably the most successful mutual fund manager of all time. He ran the Magellan Fund, which at the time that he ran it was the largest fund in the US. And he still managed to crush the S&P over his 15 or so year tenure. So definitely those books are well worth watching, well worth reading, and any of his videos are well worth watching on YouTube. But I should also mention another book that's not so well known. It's called The Wisdom of Crowds by James Surowiecki. And the takeaway from that book is basically that the market is generally, but not always, more informed than the individual. So it's like the idea, like Adam Smith's idea of the invisible hand. So there's a wisdom in the crowd, and so there's a wisdom in stock market. And so stock market prices are generally therefore going to be pretty accurate. And so again, you need to have an investing edge if you're going to be able to outperform, because an individual investor can outperform. Just look at Peter Lynch or Carl Icahn, but you have to do your homework and you have to have that advantage over other people in order to outperform.
And really, doing your homework is really probably the bottom line of why we're doing the conference. I think it gives people an opportunity to do some homework and get some background education. Out of curiosity, Charles, what's your favorite book that is not written by you?
That was interesting. I was thinking about that. There's several. I always, go back to Benjamin Graham's The Intelligent Investor. I just think it's a really wonderful book. But I'd say probably a more modern book would probably be The Undoing Project by Michael Lewis, which really kind of a layman's version of understanding the importance of behavioral finance and why it matters so much. And Michael Lewis obviously is a great storyteller as well. But for those of you who don't want the book version, I understand they are coming out with a movie version of it instead. So you could cheat on reading it.
Well, that's great. And it's not too late to register, right, Charles? So if our members still want to sign up for the conference, there's still time to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the conference takes place on Thursday, but now is a great time to register. If you register now, you'll get the link right when we first send it out early next week. So if you're thinking about attending, I encourage you to. And as we've said before, if you want to attend but the scheduling just doesn't work out good for you, you can sign up now and then you'll have access. So maybe you can't watch it until Thursday night. Well, all those videos will be sitting there waiting for you to start watching them. So the great thing about having this virtual is that you can watch it on your own schedule. But of course, we'd love to have you join us live and participate during the conference itself.
And I guess we're showing the URL, the quick shortcut URL on our website for how to get there. And again, looking forward to the conference. We'll get plenty of sleep ahead of time. We'll have our coffee ready, right? We'll have our liquid assets ready to go to keep us up and get through the day. And whether we're moderating or speaking, we're looking forward to interacting with you guys next week. And I'm looking, again, it's been a while since we've had a conference. It's been 2 years now. And fall is here. It's cool in the air. And it's a good time to get ready for winter and get ready for all the stock information that we need.
Absolutely. I hope everyone here that's online watching us, we hope to see you virtually at our conference. As we said before, I think it's going to be really informative, to be educational, but I think you'll find it also very entertaining and very engaging.
And before we leave, I have one last question here. Is specifically, what was the name of the Lewis book that you mentioned, Charles?
So it's called The Undoing Project, and it was by Michael Lewis. I want to say it came out in 2019, I believe it was 2018 or 2019.
Very good. And I think we're taking a break next week. Is that correct?
We are, because we're going to be doing our boot camps during the day, Wayne and I, and then we'll have having our conference, Thursday and Friday. So we'll be taking a break from our Wednesday's webinars, but then we'll be coming back on the 6th and, giving a wrap up of the conference, sharing with you some of the insights that we have. And certainly, if you have some feedback you want to give us, say, hey, I really like the speaker, or I learned something from that. Please let us know. We might incorporate some of those comments in our post-conference wrap. But we hope to see you at the conference, and we hope to see you again on Wednesday, October 6th.
Very much so. And I see Kyler's back, although not as fancy home as from some of the interviews that I noticed.
I was very fortunate to be in the home of my grandparents, who lent me their office space. So unfortunately, it's a little bit of a downgrade right now.
Why don't you take us out, Kyler?
Oh yeah, thank you so much, John and Charles. Great presentation as always. I want to thank everyone for attending tonight's webinar. Links to some of the resources discussed tonight will be sent to your email address. As mentioned by John, we do not have a webinar next week. The next webinar will be on Wednesday, October 6th, 7:30. So excited to see you there, and excited to see you all at the conference. We wish all of you viewing good health, good fortune, and a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.